Right. Ash is ready with her notes.
I brought notes.
I have mental notes because Twitter.
SimSpotter would like to ask and would like us to debate. It's 2021. Why do some of the gaming communities still think that being a troll on purpose is funny? Do people not realise it gives the whole community a bad reputation? So, there's a lot of bad apples in the gaming community. Why is that? Or is it more just because we're all online and we see more of it? I don't know. Ash, take it away.
Can I start? So I think the key point here is to remember that this is trolling on purpose. Because obviously accidentally upsetting someone, mistakes happen. But, you know, if you're told that you've upset someone, you should be making every effort to not continue that behaviour. I think a lot of the trolling on purpose kind of stems from people believing, or like people that being okay in their friendship group IRL. But it's not really appropriate to do with strangers on the internet. There's a very parasocial relationship between streamers and influencers and their audiences, and a lot of it gets muddled up in a sort of over-familiarity where people think that they're friends with online personalities, whereas a bit like if you're a server or a bartender, being friendly is part of your job online. It's you trying to communicate with with like other people, whereas, and it's not in a friendly way. It's in a parasocial kind of like, this is my job, basically, is what I would say. And I think a lot of it comes from that kind of over-familiarity of, well, this person speaks to me in a friendly manner, we have banter, I have banter with my friends in this particular way, so they're going to accept it as well. And I don't think that's a particularly good thing, because it's really difficult to convey, like, tone over a written format, especially something as instant as Twitch as well. So you just type it in and think nothing of it, whereas that tone isn't going to come across in the way you've written it very well. So that's where this on-purpose trolling kind of comes from, because it's people being trolls on purpose because they're like that in real life with their friends who know them, and they can use like a sarcastic tone of voice, but that doesn't translate very well to the internet. So that's my first point. I shall step back so you guys can talk a bit before I just continue and completely railroad this, because I have 2 pages of notes.
That's fine. We can come back. So yeah, I think it's so strange that as a whole community, the gaming community, or whatever name you want to give it, is very good.
I'll say community.
Yeah, it's very good at being one voice when it's complaining about something. For example, you know, if a game developer makes a certain decision or there's a certain announcement in the media, you know, the gaming community will collectively all come together and we'll all be on the same side. But then when it comes into smaller communities, so the community of a certain game or a certain fan community, you know, the OLL community or whatever, how people treat each other within those smaller communities seems to be a lot more toxic than how we all try to represent gaming as a medium to outsiders. It seems that there's a much more coherent front put on out of that. But between ourselves, it does seem that people seem to have much less... you know, people seem to care a little bit less, perhaps, in terms of, you know, whether they upset people or not. And it's just, I think just the nature of it being, so much of it is online, so much of it is, you know, limited words in comments and tweets and stuff like that, that it's very hard to put, as Ash said, it's very hard to put like the right tone of voice on it. And it's, you know, very easy to then become offended either by mistake or, you know, it's just a very strange subject to me in the way that different people seem to speak to each other, and I find it quite sad in some ways.
So do I. Like, obviously, I've been in the Destiny community for like 6 years now, and when you guys mentioned on the stream last week, immediately that was the first thing that came into my head, because a lot of the community are very, like, there is a lot of toxic people in this community. that I'm in. Some, like me and my friends have gripes with the game, but we voice it to each other, and then we find ways around it. But there's a lot of people in the community, and a lot of people that attack streamers and the developers themselves over stuff that isn't necessarily the developer or streamer's fault.
Jack, do you think people play games to have like some form of social status rather than, that they can then use to hold over other people, rather than playing games just for the enjoyment of it?
I think to a certain extent, yes. I think some people do, like, they'll be like, oh, I'm better than you at this certain thing because I played it for so long. Like, people will brag to their mates. I've had this where, like, other people said, oh, I'm better than you at a game, screw you. And I'm just, like, thinking, why? Like, what's the point? Like, you're ruining my fun because you're being rude to me about it. And I definitely agree with you, and I saw Ash was nodding as well. There is a sense of, like, I guess, I'm trying to think, there's a word for it, when you feel powerful over someone else. I've forgotten there's
it's like a superiority complex.
There you go. Yeah, some people have that superiority complex over people they know because they're better at a game than some people, and it upsets me because I'm just like, I'm not amazing at games, but I enjoy them, and Destiny's a game that I've put so much time in, and I see all these people on Twitter, like for example, when servers go down, people are just telling the developers to die and everything, and I'm just like, they will sort it. Yes, it can be frustrating because they'll go on for, like, they'll tell you it's be done at this time, then they extend it for another 2 or 3 hours, but people like that just...
It's like there's a certain sense of entitlement, isn't there, to certain gaming communities. It's like, well, where do you get this from? So, Bill, sorry to sort of take away screen time from you. I imagine the whole atmosphere around, the activity that you can come across online with other people, is that one of the reasons why you don't play online games generally?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Oh. No, I took a different stance on it recently, to be fair with you. Communication's hard. There's people that get paid a lot of money to communicate, and I think things like Facebook and Twitter and Twitch, they're not the best way to communicate. There are people out there that troll because it's easier to troll than it is to be more polite and not offend people. That's harder to get right. It doesn't justify what people do, and I tend to give people more the benefit of the doubt that they just worded it wrong, because I've seen many times that people are ready and prepared to say and defend themselves because they expect it. So when I do streaming and when I put myself out there, I remember things like what Michael Jackson used to say, and the Queen has been told to say it as well. All those public figures that put themselves out there in the limelight, you're there in front of the camera. So like you've said already, it's a bit like a complex where they feel that you're the entertainment, so you can't offend them.
You belong to them. You are there to entertain them.
That's right. There's a certain degree with regards to that. And part of me, because of the people that I looked up to when I was growing up, feel that you kind of have to be the bigger person and say, okay, well, I'm on the stage. If you want to be that way, that's fine. I'll give you the benefit of the doubt, because more times than not, I find that people have just been misunderstood or misquoted or whatever. But when you do get someone who's out there to be toxic, it's kind of like, if you react, you're giving them power. So I tend to not, or try and bend what they say around into something that can be struck up to have conversation to take away that power. They only have troll power if you allow them to say, oh my god, you're so out of order, or that's not right. They're the ones that really, they're not that difficult to deal with, I find, because if you don't react, they haven't got that much to go on. The ones that are difficult to deal with, which I think you need a certain degree of skill and understanding and maturity, are the ones that not necessarily trolling because they're trying to be nasty, they're trolling because they're passionate. I've had many people that I've had conversations with online who feel... the first one that comes to mind, because I've just been playing it recently, is Minecraft Steve, when Minecraft Steve was put in Smash Brothers, there was people sending death threats to to developers and saying, "Oh my god, I can't believe that they wasted the character slot. They've taken my money because I bought the season pass and I didn't. Now I've been robbed because I want Crash Bandicoot or something like that." And it's their immaturity to be able to deal with something that a lot of us, growing up, or even to a certain degree now, have had that aspect to sort of say, do you know what, bad things happen. It's not always fair, and I've dealt with it in a better way. But if you're raised on things like Twitter, and that's the only way you communicate because you are, small, you don't have a big group of friends, and that's your only outlet, then you just use it in the wrong way. So yeah, I think there are trolls out there. It is horrible what some people say. I think it's bang out of order when people don't get what they want and they go and blood people's socials to be able to get what they want. But at the same time, I feel that there's a certain degree of taking their power away from them if you just don't react in the same way a bully can't bully if you turn their back on them, kind of thing. So
I think it's really interesting that all three of you have mentioned the toxicity, or the toxicity that you three have mentioned is to do with like harassing devs, sending death threats, stuff like that. Can I highlight a different sort of toxicity for a moment? Bill, you don't like Breath of the Wild, do you? And I presume you have spoken to people who do like Breath of the Wild about you not liking Breath of the Wild.
To people.
Right. So how many of them have just straight to your face said you're wrong?
All of them.
All of them. How many of them have asked you if you've actually played the game?
I think pretty much all of them again, maybe 90%.
How many of them asked you how much of the game you played?
That was the very next question after I said I played the game.
Okay. How many of them told you that you were playing the game wrong?
Probably about half of them, I think.
Mm-hmm. How many of them then told you that it's a critically acclaimed game and that you are just saying you don't like it for attention?
You should like it, Bill. That sort of stuff.
I think I know where you're going with this, Ash, but I will tend to let people have that conversation with me and let them get all of that out, and fire all their guns and explain all their things, and then I'll start with going, that's great, you've had your say, but now can I please explain as to why I don't like the game? And then when I explain what I feel a Zelda game is, we then have the conversation of, oh, it's getting boring, and they had to mix it up sometimes, and I said, yeah, that's fine. But they made a Zelda game for you, but they didn't make a Zelda game for me. And my opinions is going to be different in the same way that I like fighting games, but you probably can't stand them.
Yep.
So yeah, exactly. Those conversations have a lot, and they take a lot of assumptions, don't they?
Yeah, but then how many of them have said, oh, well, you're a dude, you don't understand gaming?
None of them.
Because almost all of what I find toxicity-wise, and I appreciate you, the three of you probably won't have experienced this.
I reckon that we are in a very fortunate position that we don't understand half of the problems that certain other people would get.
Yeah. So I regularly, I on the regs get told, this goes back to gatekeeping. I will bring it back round, I promise. I have a lot of the same opinions about Breath of the Wild as you, Bill. I have the exact same conversation that we just had about Breath of the Wild. And then it's always ended with, oh, you're a girl, you don't know what you're talking about. And I get that a lot with just pretty much everything. Like, oh, Ash doesn't like this game, haha, she's a girl. And also, people seem to remember what I say more than what, dudes say. For example, everyone remembers that I don't like Breath of the Wild, but even John didn't remember that Bill doesn't like Breath of the Wild.
Quite true.
So there's that, and it comes back to that gatekeeping and feeling superior, asking if you've ever played a game, to have an opinion on it, and I get that so much, and it does stem from being a woman, because a lot of it is dudes trying to keep their anime waifus to themselves. I've had people at conventions ask me if I know the character I'm cosplaying as. And I'm like, well, I bloody hope so, because I spent months making this costume. And then they're like, did you watch this? Do you know every tiny little detail? And it comes back to gatekeeping. And then if you call them out on it, if you call them out and say, hey, I just don't like this game, it's got nothing to do with me being female, a lot of people will hide behind the it's just a joke, bro, kind of excuse, so that they have a way of plausible deniability. But it's not just a joke. No comedian, like Dara Brian's not going to go on stage and be like, hey, Ash, she doesn't like Breath of the Wild, and expect people to laugh. And it's a bit like
it's an awkward response once they know they're wrong.
Yeah. But I think if multiple people are telling you that something is toxic or creating a harmful atmosphere in a community, and you are a grown up, you're not like a child on the playground who doesn't have critical thinking skills, so that I don't think you can necessarily excuse it as, oh, they're just insecure. If they've been told, if you've told someone a few times, or even just once, like, that's not appropriate, you shouldn't say that, that's really nasty, and they continue to do it and create a harmful, toxic atmosphere, like, that's not even at that point trolling, that's just being a horrible person. And I'm not talking about anyone in particular, but that's just how I feel about it.
If I add to that as well, is that how they got there is, I guess, the question that I would like to ask myself. How did they get to this point where they feel that they have to defend their opinion so much? And I think it comes from a bunch of people in front of the camera, or people who have an outlet, who throw things out into the wild, the trolls that we were originally talking about, to get a response and get a reaction. And they make pre-consumptions, and that's the hardest thing with I find with gamers. They've made pre-consumptions before they've even asked the question or know what the right question is to ask. So they'll hear somebody, maybe a girl gamer on Twitch, who might be very pretty, who plays the games because everyone tells them to play the games, and they already make a conception that everybody is like this person. Which, there's nothing wrong with that. But that doesn't mean that this person represents everybody in that one community. They might hear Breath of the Wild is the best game of all time, and then they'll have one person on the internet who will make a video to say Breath of the Wild is terrible because it's just rubbish, and then they never really give any concrete reason as to why they don't like it, but they know that video's out there just because they're the exception to the rule, and they'll get likes or views because they're saying things that the majority of people disagree with. But it's when you can formulate your opinion strongly and say it in a way that says, I don't like Breath of the Wild because I prefer the dungeons, and the dungeons are not in Breath of the Wild, or whatever you want to say. I find that goes, oh, that's not what I expected. And that's the kind of reaction that I go for when I have these conversations, is to try and get that person to go, oh, I need to think this over because I've made an assumption and I've been wrong. But yeah, I think being the bigger person to sort of say, hang on a minute, can we just be adults for 5 seconds and just think about it? That goes a long way to desensitize a lot of this cancel culture troll-like atmosphere.
Jack? That doesn't. Sorry, can I just respond to Bill really quickly, and then I will let Jack speak, because it's Bill makes a good point about trying to de-escalate and make people question, and that absolutely is like the best thing you can do, but it doesn't really work when people already think that you don't know what you're talking about based purely on the fact that you are female. I have tried to talk to, I used to stream on my own channel, and I literally said to people, and I think there are people in the chat that will verify this. People were making the joke about, oh, Ash actually likes the game, OMG, how hilarious. And I said, oh, please don't do that. That really upsets me. I really don't like that. And literally, explained why it was upsetting. And literally the next day, someone made a comment on one of OLL's videos being like, oh, haha, Ash likes this game. and it was someone that was in that chat. So I think you make a good point, and it is what you should try and do, but it doesn't always work. And I'm sorry, Jack, I'll let you speak now.
That's fine.
Not easy.
It actually is quite odd that this has come up because, and good that it's come up because obviously it's good. You know, we need to get this across. Something that I learned, our tutor taught that we have this. There's this thing called Screen Skills for film, where it's like it has quizzes and teaching stuff. Something called unconscious bias in the workplace came up, and it was quite interesting you say that because that was what I was thinking. It's just like there's this unconscious bias around the fact that, you know, not all women enjoy video games, so therefore every woman must not enjoy video games. Like, I think people should, even over the internet or in person, like sometimes something you think is all right for you might not be all right for someone else.
It's when they decide to formulate that opinion as well, because people think once they've seen the content of a 10-minute video or a 5-minute video, or they've seen you make a statement on social media in 2 sentences, that's it. They've formulated an opinion of your entire personality.
Exactly. It's ridiculous. It shouldn't be like that.
They treat it like watching a movie. You watch a movie for an hour and a half, you've basically got your formula. I either liked it or I didn't, and here's why and here's not. But when you've got that small little window to base an opinion on, that's when they fire all their weapons without actually getting more of the facts. How many people have based their whole opinion on what they read in a wiki page, you know, out there, rather than actually getting concrete facts or where that information came from, and all that? Was it 5G or thing that happened where people thought there was going to be something?
And Bill Gates Gates brought out coronavirus because of 5G. It's just
absolutely ridiculous.
However,
it's that people feel that they need to base the decision on that, but all your most relevant and passionate and lifetime friends and relationship you've made are definitely based on more than 10 minutes, an hour, and definitely more than a day. And that's, I think, what people forget about on the internet. You don't base an opinion on a person in less than 10 minutes. That's a first impression, not an opinion. So you need to give that person more of a chance to actually speak and make an impression on you.
But then from that, like, I don't really know, like, if that is what am I trying to say? Like, I don't really feel that is kind of what the question was, because that's just people being, like, having no social skills, basically, to not understand that. But I think the question was more getting at people who actively go out of their way to say things they know are going to upset specific people, like people going out, say John streams Final Fantasy VII and the chat is just full of people saying, oh, you're only playing Final Fantasy VII for attention, you're only doing it because women want to play Final Fantasy VII, and stuff like that. Or like, say Jack plays Minecraft but doesn't like Minecraft, and everyone's like, oh, you're only saying you don't like Minecraft because it's popular. It's that sort of trolling is what I thought the question was about, and I don't think you can just dismiss that as oh, that's just the way people are, or oh, that's just that person's humor. I think that, like, it goes back to, like, if you're being told that what you're doing is upsetting and harmful and toxic, and people are actively telling you that and you're being called out on it, then you kind of need to reflect on what you're doing, on your actions. And it doesn't matter if your intentions were that it was a joke, because actions speak louder than intentions. You may not have intended to upset me by making that joke, but you did, and that's just them's the facts. So I think people need to kind of reflect, and if you reflect and you're like, and you say to yourself, oh yeah, I understand that my humor's not great, I'm really sarcastic and it's not coming across very well, but you just need to accept that I'm going to keep doing it. That's quite childish and immature, because, like, once again, you're a grown-up, you have critical thinking skills, you've acknowledged that what you're doing is upsetting for people, and you're just going to continue doing it anyway. It's a bit like the definition of bullying, where it's continual. it's not like a one-off nasty comment on a YouTube because so and so said they didn't like X game. It's a constant creating an environment of people not like always being on the back foot. That's the phrase I'm looking for. It's people always being on the back foot with you because they never know if you're being serious or not, or if you're like baiting them into having an argument or whatever. And I think you guys probably don't instantly assume that's what people are doing because you maybe don't get questioned on your opinions all the time like I do. Again, not by like members of this community, but I do experience that quite a lot, and I imagine that's why you guys have gone for quite a broad view on this, and I've gone for quite a specific type of trolling.
I think as males, and obviously disagree with me if you want, chaps, but I think as males we simply are not subjected to as much of that toxicity as other, as other groups or members of society of certain natures, whatever, see it. As a white male of a certain age, I'm probably the least likely group to receive that sort of attention and that sort of treatment. And generally, whenever I get heckled or whatever on a stream, it's much more of a banter thing. There's no indication that there's any form of like malice there. Whereas obviously, we all know it's clearly far more prevalent for other groups.
Yeah, I think you've got a bit of an oxymoron mixed in there at the same time, though. If someone's purposely gone out to troll you, there's no stopping them. They've decided to be a nasty person, and they are a nasty person. They want a response from you. I completely cannot speak on the basis of being a female gamer, because I've never been subject to that. And I'd speak with Sarah about that all the time when she was thinking about streaming as well. But when people are going out to purposely be horrible, they're the people I'm referring to when you take that power away. Because if they go out there to get a bad response and you've given them a bad response, or they go out there to take the mickey out of you because you're playing a game and you're a female, and they get that, regardless of how logical you are, regardless of whether you're right or wrong, they won because they got their response. It's the other part which I feel shouldn't be grouped together, where it's going to be hard to sort of word this on the fly, but they're the ones that wanted to be the Joker of the class, and they got it wrong. And that's where I take the stance of trying to lead by example and go, you've missed the mark on that one. You need to sort that out. That's wrong. We're not going to laugh on it, but at the same time, I'm not going to ostracize you as being a troll. You just need to learn from that. And I think when communication and work and talking with people in a group is a very much hit and miss affair. We watch movies and content media all the time where there's the guy that runs in, he's completely naked, he jumps in the pool, and everyone's like, oh, that guy's so wild. And I think everybody wants to be that person, to be the one that is the funny one. But it's so difficult to get that right all the time, and it's
never
as easy what it is with regards to that. But that's the point. That's the problem. If you don't learn from that, you're no good as those trolls that are going out there for purposely trying to damage people.
Yeah.
However, I still, on the other side of the coin, think there's times that we need to speak about that to sort of say what they did wrong, give them the benefit of the doubt that they were trying to do something funny, but monitor the fact that they're not going to turn into this troll person without talking about it.
Yeah. The issue that I was talking about, because that's a really good point, actually, is that the people that are there to, like, purposefully upset people are, like, that go out of their way to be mean. You're never going to fix them. It's the class clown that doesn't always get it right, that when you have that conversation about, what you said wasn't very funny, it was quite hurtful, please don't do that again, and then they don't take the time to reflect, and they just keep doing it, that's when it becomes the sort of purposeful troll that I'm talking about, because you've told them that what they're doing is upsetting, and they've gone, yeah, I hear you, I acknowledge that, but that's just me, and I'm just going to keep on trucking. And that's when it gets that's when an environment just becomes really toxic, because it becomes a bit of a sounding board, because no one's learning from their mistakes, basically. So yeah, I think I've said everything I had written down now. I literally made 2 pages of notes.
No, that's fine. Some
I'm so sorry.
Very interesting points. It's nice to have a discussion about something serious in the industry.
Yeah,
as you know, as much as we all enjoy the what's your favourite game, and you know, let's take the mickey out of someone playing such and such a game and light-hearted stuff, it's nice to actually have a serious discussion about something. So thank you very much, everyone.
It's a broad subject on the basis that I want as many people in the world to play video games.
There's so many elements to it, isn't there?
Yeah, but when you broaden that out to basically say, look, I want as many people to play video games and experience the games I've really enjoyed, so we can have an in-depth conversation, you're gonna get a big mix of different personalities and people. And sometimes, if you want that, you can't have the best of both worlds. If you want that big community where everyone's going to get involved, you're going to have some crazy people, you're going to have some jokers, you're going to have some nutcases. But it's so long as you learn from that, and so long as we give it the benefit of the doubt and say, okay, you're going to have some chances. You walk over that line too many times, we're going to put our attention on somebody else.
Sadly, in a perfect world, there would be nothing like that, but there is sadly people out there that purposefully do this thing because, you know, they wake up and think, oh, I'm gonna go on such and such a stream and take the mick out of them, and it's I don't get it. It's just like, and some people purposely donate on streams to then say stuff. It's just like, you're just
for the attention.
Yeah, it's literally just for the attention. It's like, oh, they donated like £100 just to say, oh, you're ugly, stuff like that. Like, I saw a clip. There's somebody who I watched, like the Sidemen. They're like a YouTube group, and one of their girlfriends. I saw a clip where somebody purposefully donated and called them like ugly, and she cried on stream. It's just like, why would you do that to someone who's just trying to make entertainment and, you know, entertain her viewers? It was not nice to see. It was, you know, it's just sad that there are people out there who take enjoyment and are enabled, not enabled, but, you know, take enjoyment and think, you know, riled up by the fact that they could ruin someone's day. Yeah. I don't understand it. It genuinely is a foreign concept to me. I just don't understand it.
You know, and I think that's why I'm, without wanting to sound too big-headed, but I'm extremely proud, generally speaking, of what we have in the OLL community, because I think on the whole we have a very positive community, and you know, everyone generally respects each other, you know, in the appropriate way, which is what we want. So yes. Agreed. Thank you, guys. Let's
should we talk about something a bit more light-hearted?
Yeah, let's
let me see what we've got. Iconic's question for this week. Iconic wrote a really long question, so bear with while I read this out. I could probably paraphrase this in one sentence, but I've just copy and pasted what Iconic has said here.
Do you want me to paraphrase it? Because I know what the question is.
I'll go for it.
Yeah, I've got it up as well.
Okay, so in the way that mobile phones are released with upgrades every year that are seemingly minor, but to some people can make quite a difference, would you buy consoles that were released in the same way? So if Nintendo did a Switch upgrade every year, if Sony did a PlayStation upgrade every year, and it was minor upgrades like battery life on the Switch, would you buy a new console every year? What would you have to do or what would the companies have to do to make you buy a console every year? I know my answer, so I can keep going if you guys need to think.
I have an answer.
I also have an answer. John, you go first.
Okay. I think that inevitably the console cycle will reduce to be more in line with phones, because as the technology increases and the rate of technology improvement will constantly increase. Therefore, the cycles between consoles theoretically should get shorter. So I think that the value and the price of, I'm going to get my words out properly, the price of the technology is only going to go up and up and up. It's like, you know, if you want to buy yourself a new phone, you're talking 500 or 600 quid if you buy it separately. or it's 30-40 quid a month if you pay for it monthly. I can quite envisage, and Xbox have kind of already started doing it with the Series X and their payment plans, I can quite imagine that consoles will be just like phones within the next generation, where you will simply pay your monthly subscription for your box, and every couple of years you'll be able to get to the end of your 2-year contract and you'll be able to upgrade it for the next box that will have the smallest bells and whistles added to it. Won't be significantly different, and we'll have that gradual increase of tech where everyone has got slightly different specs of system. It doesn't really matter too much in the PC landscape, but certainly with consoles, I think that inevitably the cycles will get shorter and we'll all pay for stuff monthly. Somebody disagree with me, please.
I disagree.
Okay.
I don't think they will ever do yearly consoles because at this point, the phone upgrades aren't worth it. I don't know a single person that buys the new iPhone every year because it's just not worth it. It's not different enough.
That was a cool.
Sorry?
It was a cool thing to do about sort of 5 or 6 years ago. Everyone would rush out and buy the latest phone. But now, yeah, I think you're right. The incremental upgrades. Like, I would normally upgrade my phone as soon as I could, and I've had this for probably another 2 years longer than my contract because I know that if I get the next version, this is a Galaxy. See, I don't even know which model Galaxy it is. That's how little I care now. I think. I think it's an S9. I don't know.
It's S9 or 10, I think so. I said S8,
but I know that if I got myself an S10 or whatever, it's not going to be any different at all. Whereas a few years ago, I know that when I upgraded my phone, I'd be getting a massive resolution bump, CPU speed would be quicker, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, okay, Ash, yeah, good point. Sorry, carry on. Sorry, I interrupted you there.
That's fine. I was literally just going to say that literally the only way I would do a yearly console is if it was on contract and I could just upgrade it when the new one came out. So if I could upgrade from like an Xbox One to an Xbox Series X and then the Xbox Series X squared or whatever they decide to call it, the next one.
Well, that's kind of what they're trying
Xbox
to do now, isn't
Series X12. Yeah, but Arcade make a good point that technology is slowing down, and it's like you said, a few years ago, the difference in technology between phones was massive. Like, think about going from an iPhone 5 to an iPhone 6. That was a massive jump.
Bill, you'll join me on this. Sorry to interrupt you again, Ash. Bill, did you go from a 3310 to an iPhone?
Pretty much.
Yeah, that was the jump.
Phone.
That was
I
the
had
jump.
a flip phone, and my girlfriend at the time, who worked in a phone shop, says if you're going to be dating me, you cannot have that phone. And she actually bought me my first touchscreen phone, and I hated it because I used to text message with buttons, and I could do that so much faster than on an actual touchscreen.
I still do that on my Sky.
I can just do this.
Bill, have you got?
Like I text people walking down the street. I can't do that with a touchscreen phone now.
I can touch type on my phone with my thumbs.
I can't do that.
I can't do that. Have you got? Have any of you guys got Sky TV?
My mum does.
On
parents have.
On the Sky TV remote, when you go to search for something, there's like an A to Z bar, and you move it left and right to highlight the letter you want to type in on the search bar. Or you can type it in old school text mode, so you have to press button number 2 3 times to type a C.
No, I'm sorry, you are living in the dark ages because my mum's Sky TV has a microphone that you can talk to.
Yeah, my mum
just hold a button and you're like,
my telly does that as well.
But
I prefer to type it in with the old school text just because I enjoy pressing the number 3 button 3 times to get an F.
John likes playing the Sky games that they had as well. You know, the classics.
I did actually.
Don't you miss that? You stay away from Beehive Bedlam, that's a classic.
I love Beehive Bedlam. We were talking about this, me and Alex were talking about this the other day about Beehive Bedlam. It was great.
We seem to have gone away from Ash's point somewhat. Sorry, Ash.
That's fine, I can bring it back. So the difference in technology between phones now is minimal, and it'll get to the point where the difference in consoles is minimal. Like, I genuinely don't think, like, if it wasn't for Alex, I wouldn't have a PS5, because there's not enough upgrade that I care about. Like, I don't care about ray tracing. It doesn't make the game more fun, it just makes it look nice. So yeah, I think it'd have to be on contract, and I'd have to just get like an upgrade when the new one came out. But I don't think they'll ever do it, because how are they going to sell games and make games for consoles that are constantly changing their specs? It just
they've got to be the same
business
thing
model doesn't work
by default. So I think, I mean, at the moment you get refreshes, don't you, every couple of years? So you get a slim console where it's just, cheaper for them to make it in a certain way, so you just get a slight revisions. And sometimes that will come with things like a slight resolution bump or an improved screen display on this, potential new Switch that we've got coming, which needs to be called a Super Switch. But yeah, no one's going to spend 500 quid every year to keep up with the latest console. It would have to be they'd have to change the payment system for it, wouldn't they?
Yeah, definitely. I personally wouldn't either. Like, I'm not one to do that anyway with phones. Like, I bumped up from iPhone 6S to an iPhone XR. Like, mine was quite a big jump because I don't tend to want to spend all that money on something every year. So I get, like, some people enjoy the fad of getting the new iPhone every year, but like, between me and my sister, she has the 11, I have the XR, there's not a lot of difference. So it's just like, I think the whole idea around video games, Ash is right, like, the business model would not work, like, because you get these new consoles with, like, new stuff, and it's just like the old ones become not necessarily redundant, but it's like the demand and the want for these new consoles becomes part of the reason you buy them. It's like, oh, I can get the new PS5 or Xbox Series S because it does this over my PlayStation or Xbox. And I think removing that removes a sense of excitement, personally, for me.
It's not as much of an occasion, is it? If you were to get it every year.
It's like when I got my PS5, I was so excited. Like, I was looking forward to it. It was such a big thing for me because it was something. Because it was, it's an expensive console. It was nice to pay for it myself, like, properly, and it was sort of, for me, it was quite a big thing because when it got announced, it looked really cool. For me, because obviously in the last, like, year and a bit, I've got back into PlayStation because I was a PlayStation game. Like, I used to play PlayStation before Xbox, and then with all the exclusivity stuff, it's just like that's what brought me as well. And it's just like, I think if they did this whole bring one out every year on a subscription service, it just wouldn't work financially for most people and wouldn't work financially for the gaming world either. It just, developers it would be a lot of crunching, and the turnaround for games would ruin their quality.
Well, they can barely make a game with inside a generation anyway. Just look at Grand Theft Auto, look at Final Fantasy, and
exactly,
you wouldn't keep up with the latest specs and stuff, would you?
Wouldn't.
It would have to be scalable like PC stuff. Sorry, Bill, you look like you're going to say something.
Yeah, so they've already done it. We forget about the DS and the Game Boy Advance and all the different models that they did with those. That's what they've done, and I think that's
DS
kind
is
of
a good example.
What they'd actually go on for, where they make every console and thing that come out backwards compatible with the stuff that came before it, and they do it like they enhance what that console can do, not necessarily what games you play on it. I don't warrant it. When I bought my DS, I kept that DS for many years before they brought out the big XL, which then I thought that's the one I want to actually worthwhile as an upgrade. But working in game, there was people that got the DS Lite straight after the DS launch, which was pretty much a year and a bit afterwards, and then someone else got the
2DS.
What was it? The 3DS after that, and then there was the 3DS XL, and there was the 3DS with different face plates, and
then the 2DS, then the 2DS XL.
Yeah,
I didn't see the point of the 2DS.
But yeah, but they generally all played the same thing.
The PSP was even worse because the PSP barely changed any functionality except for making it lighter.
When the PS Vita came out.
I think they could do it, but I hope they won't. And looking at the consoles that are coming out, I think it's going to be more of a streaming service than it is going to be a hardware upgrade type of thing. Maybe the Switch will do it, like with the Super Switch, though. I can see that sticking around for a while.
Not the Switch U arcade, it's the Super Switch. It will not be called Switch U. I can't be having that. JFC.
Switch U.
Just going back to my boomerific comments about old school texting. JFC, Mrs. Blockbuster. Someone said that I still use CFAX. That's wrong. I used teletext.
That was also JFC.
It had. I used what?
Were you on the teletext quizzes every weekend?
Yes, I was on Digitizer, which is how I got my video games news, and they had a quiz every Friday.
Sorry, what's this?
Jack, this is you know CFAX and teletext, Jack, yeah?
No.
Don't worry, Jack. I have to have Alex explain it to me.
We don't have time to explain it, Jack. Imagine the internet, But if it went...
So like dial-up internet, but worse?
Oh, way worse than that, mate. Way worse than that. But tell you what, we'll do a special on Teletext and CFAX at some point.
Oh, wait, can we do boomers versus millennials?
Yeah, that's like you two versus me and Ash.
All right. Wait, why don't we do it? Why don't we maybe do it as some sort of a quiz where Bill and I set you guys questions about old stuff, and you guys set us questions about young stuff.
That's not fair, because you're pissed off before we were born. That's not fair. I was thinking
Real
we
unfair,
talk.
John, considering how much history there is compared to what they've got nowadays.
I was thinking, will we do pop culture? So me and Jack can talk to you about like TikTok and stuff, and we can say, what does this slang mean? And it's something
What
like,
does this dance mean?
heckin' chonky. Where did this dance come from? And you can just be like, who was the games master 15 years before you were born?
Who hosted Countdown before this?
Right. Let's move on very quickly to our last question. Oh my God, help us, Cheney says. Oh, it's echoey again. Many games have soundtracks of licensed songs, such as GTA, Gran Turismo, FIFA, etc., etc. Cheney's personal favourite is SSX. But what is yours? What are our favourite games that have real songs in them?
SingStar Queen, or failing that, the ABBA SingStar.
I don't think.
And before anyone starts saying that doesn't count, yes, it does.
Fine.
SingStar was great.
Okay. I was going to use. I was going to say like Guitar Hero, but if we're not going to do,
I was going to say Guitar Hero.
If we're not allowed to use music
No, you
games,
absolutely can use that, because that's why I'm using SingStar.
all right, I'm going with Wipeout 2097. That had a licensed soundtrack. Had the Prodigy.
To the surprise of absolutely no one, John has picked a Wipeout game.
One of the channel rewards for using up your channel points, which I'm almost sort of nearly there with, will be where you can redeem channel points and a tumbleweed will roll across the screen.
Well, there is only
For
one
these
game.
kind of moments. Sorry, Bill, your answer?
I was going to say, there's only one game that can take this title, and that's Brutal Legend.
A game I've never heard of.
Neither have I.
With Jack Black, where it had the most amazing heavy metal soundtrack
That's right,
of
actually.
any video game ever.
Yeah, but isn't that an OST rather than a licensed one?
I guess technically, because it was a soundtrack made for the game, but then they are songs by a real band. Or bands.
Sorry, no, every music is songs by a real band. I could say Final Fantasy
Fair
XIV, because that's
Okay,
the composer plays guitar.
Oh, Arcade has obviously got the correct answer. Any Tony Hawk game.
I'll be honest. There's not really many games that I play where they have licensed stuff apart from GTA, because I don't play FIFA, haven't played Gran Turismo. SSX3 I played when I was like younger. So I'd say probably GTA would be the only one I know. But if it was like OSTs, there's quite a few for OSTs, I would say, for me personally. But yeah, like licensed ones probably GTA, because I know songs off. Like, I've played GTA the most. Like, I'm playing it later, so.
Rock and Roll Racing on the SNES. Oh, Loz beat me to it in the chat. Crazy Taxi as well. Yeah. Oh, there's so many good games.